Brilliant by Roddy Doyle, Chapter 6.
Brilliant, said Gloria, and the word popped open above them and filled the passage with a gentle yellow light that made the wheelie bins glow. They had a feeling the light wouldn't last long, so Raymond got going again and Gloria followed him, past their dad's parked car out to the street. Raymond stopped. So did Gloria. Where now, Razor? She said. They were at the gate. They could go left or right or straight across the road. There are 3 black dogs in our street, said Raymond. Yeah? And they all live down this way, said Raymond. He pointed right. They ran. There was something about nighttime. It seemed to make the noise of their shoes much louder. They could hear their steps bouncing off the walls of all the houses. It sounded like there were other people coming up behind them. Gloria looked, but there was no one else. They ran past 3 more gates to the Mooney's house. The gate was open. They tiptoed to the front door. They got down on their knees. Raymond pushed open the letterbox, and together they looked through the slit. They saw 2 black eyes and a tongue. The eyes and tongue belonged to Lulu Mooney. The tongue tried to lick their faces through the letterbox. Raymond was very carefully letting the flap of the letterbox back down. Lulu was licking his fingers, and he wanted to laugh. He pushed her nose away with a finger and shut the flap. They could hear little happy whimpers from the other side of the door. I don't think Lulu's the black dog of depression, said Gloria. No, Raymond agreed. Lulu started barking. Run! I am! They dashed back to the street. They could hear Mr. Mooney from inside the house. Shut up or I'll go down there and take that bloody bone off you. Gloria stopped running. The funny bone! No, said Raymond. It's just an ordinary bone. It's Lulu's. She's been minding it for years. And it isn't funny. It's disgusting. Come on! They ran to the next house, the Simpsons. Gloria stopped again. They're not there, she remembered. Melanie Simpson was in her class at school. They've gone away for St. Patrick's Day, she said. Where? Don't know. Down the country. All of them? Yeah. Amigo as well? Amigo was the Simpsons' dog. Suppose, said Gloria, they wouldn't leave him on his own, unless they've trained him to use a can opener. Okay, said Raymond. They hadn't moved while they were talking, and they both thought the same thing. It was better to keep moving. While they ran, they felt like they were hidden, or at least harder to see, if anyone, an adult, was looking out of a window. Come on! They ran to the next house, the O'Driscolls. The O'Driscolls' black dog Fang slept in a shed in the back, so this was a tricky mission, harder than just opening a letterbox. They walked carefully to the side gate. It wasn't locked. Sweet! But it was creaky. The hinges were old and rusty. Raymond held the handle so he could lift the gate a little bit and slowly push it forward. It worked. The gate made hardly any noise, but the noise it did make was horrible. He stopped. They waited. No lights came on. Raymond lifted the gate again and pushed till he thought there'd be enough room for them to slide through. They waited again. They heard no voices or feet. Come on! They were able to squeeze through sideways one at a time. Raymond went first and they crept down the dark side passage. There was lots of stuff in their way. 2 bikes, a dead fridge, and smaller things that Raymond couldn't make out. Can't see properly. Brilliant! The shed was suddenly bright. Now I can.
It stayed bright till they got to the back garden, where it was already bright enough for them to see the things that were in their way. The lawnmower, a wheelbarrow, a fork, an empty bucket. The lawnmower was buried in the grass. The grass was really long and a bit frightening because it seemed to be making a noise and even grabbing at them as they walked through it to the shed. Gloria spoke very quietly. She wasn't scared. Well, not really. But she wanted to hear a voice, even her own. So the grass would just be grass again and everything would be normal. Mom says Mr. O'Driscoll has a bad back, she said, and that's why he never cuts the grass. Dad says Mr. O'Driscoll's only a waster, said Raymond just as quietly. They were at the shed now. The door was open, but they didn't go in. Here, Fang. They heard Fang's tail thumping the floor of the shed, but he didn't come out. Fang? His tail thumped the floor again, but his tail was the only part of Fang that moved. They went to the shed door and looked in. It was pitch black. The shed had no window, but they heard Fang thump, thump, and then they could see him. He was lying on his rug looking at them. It seemed warm in the shed, and the dog smell was nice, so they stepped in. Don't shut the door, Raymond whispered. There is no door, Gloria whispered back. They stood there and looked down at Fang. Fang was older than both of them. He'd always been old. He was a mix of about 20 different breeds, and most of them must have been big, because Fang was huge. Gloria remembered why they were there. Are you depressed, Fang? She asked him. Fang farted. Is that depression? Gloria asked. Don't think so, said Raymond. Or if it is, Dad's really depressed. Here's the test. Watch. Fang! Fang's tail walloped the floor and stopped. Fang! Fang's tail walloped the floor. The tail drumming started again. See, said Raymond. Fang's definitely not the black dog of depression. He's too happy. He sighed. This job was going to be harder than he'd expected, although he hadn't really expected or anticipated anything. There was another black dog on the next street, but Raymond didn't know if there was any point.
What are you doing? The voice came from nowhere. Gloria screamed, but nothing came out. She could feel the scream in her throat, but it was clinging there, too scared to climb out of her mouth. Raymond might have screamed too. He wasn't sure. His face was an exploding red ball. That was what it felt like. His heart was in the middle of his head. He couldn't see a thing. Gloria had never been afraid of the dark. But it wasn't the dark that had frightened her. It was the voice. A voice with no body. Her scream finally came out. Oh my God! Then she saw the head. Raymond saw it too. An upside down head. Ernie, said Raymond. What? Said Ernie O'Driscoll. What are you doing? Hanging upside down, said Ernie. Yeah, said Raymond. Why, but? His heart was back where it was supposed to be. He could see Ernie O'Driscoll properly now. Ernie was hanging from a wooden beam that went across the shed just under the roof. His arms were crossed over his chest. He was hanging by his legs, like a bat. Well, said Ernie, I'm a bit of a vampire like. Ernie O'Driscoll's name was well known along the street. If you don't do your homework, you'll end up like Ernie O'Driscoll. If you don't eat your cabbage, you'll end up like Ernie O'Driscoll. Ernie was famous. All the local kids knew about him. But the fact that Ernie was a vampire was red hot, brand new news. A vampire, said Gloria. Ernie nodded once, upside down. Since when? Said Raymond. He saw Ernie nearly every day. Last week, said Ernie. Oh. Gloria thought about this. "Hey, Ernie," she said. "Did you, decide to be a vampire?" "Me ma told me to get a job," Ernie explained. "So there you go." "Vampire's a job," said Raymond. "There's a recession, bud," said Ernie. "We make our own jobs, and it kinda runs in the family." Raymond didn't really know what Ernie was talking about. "Does that mean yeah?" he asked. "It does, yeah," said Ernie. "We need young people with vision. That's my motto, And I get to stay in bed all day." Gloria wasn't even a bit scared now. "This is mad," she said. "They said that about your man Einstein," said Ernie. "The fella that invented the Xbox." "I didn't mean you're mad, Ernie," said Gloria. "There was a vampire in the shed who thought she just insulted him." But Gloria wasn't scared at all. She thought it was great she knew a vampire. "I meant it's mad, cool mad she explained. "Finding you like this." "Why are you hanging upside down?" "Seen it in a film," said Ernie. "It's good for the old digestion." "Did you suck someone's blood tonight?" "An old one in Tyrrellstown," said Ernie. "Deadly," said Gloria. "Did she scream?" "She didn't even notice," said Ernie. "She was watching EastEnders. Hang on." They heard a grunt and the whoosh of Ernie's black cape, and Ernie was standing in front of them. Brilliant. The shed was suddenly full of light, and they could see Ernie even better. "You don't look anything like Robert Pattinson, Ernie," said Gloria. "Ah well," said Ernie. "He can't have everything, I suppose." "Did the light not hurt your eyes there, Ernie?" He hadn't even blinked. "Ah, no way," said Ernie. "That's just a story." "But you really drink blood, don't you?" "Ah, yeah," he belched. "It's heavy going, he said. "But that thing about vampires, being scared of the sunlight, that was made up to fool people into thinking they're safe during the day." Fang thumped his tail again, and that made Raymond remember why they were there. "We're chasing the black dog of depression, Ernie," he said. "Want to come?" Ernie thought about it. "Is he big, is he?" "Huge," said Gloria. "I'd say so anyway." "Grand," said Ernie. "Afters what?" He patted his belly, and Gloria laughed. "What are we waiting for?" said Ernie. "Are you coming, Fang?" said Raymond. Fang thumped his tail and farted. "There's your answer, bud," said Ernie. "See you, Fang. Mind the house."
It was dark again, but they heard Fang's tail wallop in his rug. They followed Ernie out of the shed. Then Gloria heard a voice, or she thought she did, behind her. Good luck. She looked back, but there was no one there. Ernie and Raymond were in front of her. So that meant it might have meant that Fang had spoken. Had she just heard a dog speak? It was mad. But tonight, it wasn't as mad as it should have been. She just found out that Ernie was a professional vampire. She discovered that a word, brilliant, could explode into bright and beautiful light. It was quite windy too. Gloria could hear branches groaning and somewhere far off, a door slammed. It was probably just the wind that made a noise that sounded like good luck, but "Thanks, Fang," she said, over her shoulder, just in case. Fang didn't answer. Gloria ran after Raymond and Ernie. Ernie was in the lead, and he followed him out to the front, along the dark side of the house. Brilliant, and out to the street. Ernie stopped. He looked up and down the street. "So," he said, "where's this black dog?" "We don't know," said Raymond. But as he spoke, they saw the dog. at the end of the street. Not the dog exactly, its shadow, and only for a second. It was huge, and it slid against the wall, the sidewall of the spar, up as high as the upstairs window. But it had definitely been the black dog. It was gone. There was no sign of it or sound, but they'd seen it. They stood there for a while, excited, scared, and uncertain. Then, "Come on,"